The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll be starting at the top of the hour.
Good afternoon, everybody, or I should say good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm Diane Cleaver, the VP of Sales here at GiveSmart, and I hope everybody's hanging in there in this unprecedented time. I know there's like daily and hourly changes that are impacting all of our lives and our businesses and our industry, and so very interesting time. And we want all of you to know that here at GiveSmart, we are here to support you in your efforts. And as you navigate all of your fundraising efforts and events over the next few months, we are 100% here as a resource to you. So one of the things, we want to do here today is, we're always looking for ways to help our charity partners fund their mission through a variety of methods, no matter what's going on, right? So we want to be able to help you meet your donors where they are at any given time, no matter what's going on. And in the past few days, we've had a lot of inquiries about how to conduct a virtual event. And today we want to provide you with some of those ideas and guidance for running that virtual or online event for those times. And virtual events, I just want to note, aren't new to us at all. In 2019, our clients ran almost 2,900, almost 2,900 virtual events across the country, totaling over $34 million raised. So this is something we've been doing for a long time. It just has become something that I think is very important for us to to discuss today. So I want to introduce our thought leaders who are going to be on the call today. So we have Ann McGuire, who is one of our product specialists, along with Amy Gainsford and Aaron Phillips, who are two leaders from our customer success team, all specialists in our technology and running of events of all kinds. So it's going to be a great session with them. And our focus today is going to be on ways to use the GiveSmart technology to run a virtual event, as well as some ideas for incorporating other media and ways to reach your donors. I mean, it's been actually really neat in the last week how many of our charity partners have come to us with fantastic ideas. We have a number of auctioneer partners and a lot of ideas running around. So we want to share those with you today. As we go through the content, please use the Q&A to ask questions, and we will address them throughout if it's pertinent at that time, but we'll certainly get them all at the end. Should we run out of time at the end, we will either put them in a blog post or reach out to you individually. We're not going to leave any of them unanswered, but I know time is of the essence today, so we want to jump into this. So this time I'd like to turn it over to Ann to get us started.
Great, thanks, Diane, and thanks all for being here today. We're really excited to give you some information and direction on how you can incorporate your campaign, your current campaign, and pivot it over to an online or virtual event. So really excited to be able to kind of walk you through best practices and having so many great of our thought leaders on the call as well to really address questions as they come up. And before we kind of start talking through those steps, I do want to just remind everyone of all of the resources that you have to run any campaign, as well as this online or virtual event, and making sure before it begins that you've done everything that you can to get it set and ready for success for a successful event. And so before we kind of dive into the event itself, I just want to remind everyone, visit that help center, check out the Get Started section. There's an entire section dedicated to giving you those next steps, reviewing those checklists and timelines that are available, focusing in on the areas specific to the upcoming event you're about to run. And also in the guides section within the campaigns, there is an article that talks about the 10 steps prior to sharing your event or website address. So make sure you're kind of doing the initial steps to make sure you're set up for success. And that being said, when you've got everything ready to go and you're ready to start promoting your campaign or your auction or your event, we've got some great ways for you to take those steps and start getting those guests engaged. Now, we do know that we've had many of our folks who are kind of taking this pivot and switching over to this online or virtual, who might have been hosting an actual event, have already sold tickets. So I just want to kind of circle over to Amy for a few minutes and have her kind of talk through some of the things we're seeing, some of those best practices to taking those existing tickets sold and kind of incorporating that revenue into this virtual or online event.
Perfect. Thanks, Ann. One of the great features of the platform is that you can convert a ticket sale into a donation. So some of our partners have chosen to inform their guests who have already purchased tickets that they've informed them that their ticket purchase will be transferred into a donation, or if they want to pursue a refund, to reach out to them directly. So that's a great option that we have available before you think about losing that revenue to a potential refund.
Perfect. Thanks, Amy, for sharing that. Now, obviously, if you've been already selling tickets, you've been promoting that campaign, and you've been trying to get people engaged, and we do, usually recommend to start to promote early and hopefully draw interest from all of those fantastic supporters into your campaign and into those items. If you haven't been doing it already, do make sure that you're taking advantage of the social media opportunities within your campaign, and you'll find on that homepage you can showcase your full campaign through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, sending out an email, and really helping to spread the word about the events that's coming up. There's a lot of great information you can post on that homepage to really explain and highlight how the event is going to be happening as this virtual or online event. So you really have the ability to use the tools found in the campaign, both on the homepage, as well as we do offer those same social media outlets within an individual item. So it's a great way for for your supporters to share items with family and friends and say, hey, this is a great item if you're interested, but it can also work for you as the admin to really promote and highlight specific items of interest and really draw attention to them leading up to the event and throughout the course of the event. And also, if you aren't already, take advantage of sending out emails. You can do this through your campaign, and we'll get over to the messages section a little bit from now and kind of walk through how you can draft and then send those email messages out and really keep supporters aware of the virtual run of show and how the event is going to be portrayed this year, and show them and talk to them about how they can support remotely and link into all of that great fundraising activity. Again, we have some great articles and information in the Help Center to talk to you about how to promote and share that campaign. Ladies, is there anything that you'd like to add just with regards to promoting before we move into ways to fundraise through the campaign?
I think the only thing, go ahead.
Yeah, this is great, Anne. I think social media is very important. I know everybody is checking Facebook for updates these days. I think a lot of people are getting out messages much quicker that way. So your donors will really be looking towards your social media aspects for updates on what's happening in real time.
Thanks, Erin. I think the other thing that's really important just to point out is that when we don't have folks face-to-face at the event, these are the methods where you are going to reach everyone. So Anne, thank you so much for pointing out the ways that you can do it through the platform. I think Anne is going to reiterate this many times, the continuous pushing of text messages and social media is what really makes a virtual event successful. So this is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely, Diane. And we're going to really point out all of those ways that you can continue that communication leading up, through, and even post the event, and all being done right within your campaign, reaching out to those supporters and donors who've been engaged all along. So that being said, let's talk about ways that you can fundraise through your campaign as an online or virtual event. So we're going to go over to the items page and talk about all of the various opportunities you can see here. Now you will see one thing, I do have that countdown clock already established. So with an online event or a virtual event, it never hurts to let those supporters know how much time they have to place those bids, especially if you have a firm close time, which we do recommend when you're talking about a virtual or online event, keeping everyone really clear and crystal clear about how long they're going to have to place those bids and make those purchases. Now, if you're doing a manual close and you have a little bit of flexibility or wiggle room on that, you may not want to have that countdown clock exposed this early. I'm just kind of simply showing you one avenue that you can take. So let's kind of start talking about those items. Now you can continue to use your silent items and allow users to bid electronically from wherever they are on items of interest. And you know that they have ways to filter and search by categories, filter down to the items that they've had activity in, and really be able, again, no matter where they're at, to keep engaged and be aware of their activity and keep engaged in the items they're interested in. Now, I do want to point out some great ways to kind of help them stay engaged real easily. We have that great auto bid feature, and it is a fantastic way for a guest who knows they're really interested in a particular item to not only place that initial bid, but have that bid continue to automatically raise or increase up to whatever that set amount is that they place within here. And for that bidder, if no one outbids them, the auto bid will automatically win at that current bid price. Now, if the bidder is outbid, they will receive that outbid text notification. So they do have the ability to decide if they want to increase that amount and then continue to be, bidding and engaged in that item. Now, another thing you can do is set a buy it now price, and it simply allows that supporter to buy that price at the price set within the item at the time of creation. Now, do know that if you are using that buy it now price, the auto bid feature is removed from that item. So it is one or the other on a single item, but it gives some great ways to, again, keep that activity, keep that engagement, and let those guests, really have that opportunity to either outright buy that item or win it by having that auto bid continue to do that work for them. And while that auction is going on, keep guests engaged. Use text messaging to highlight and engage those bidders. We do offer a great text message that's preset into the campaign, keeping those guests aware of what items haven't been bid on yet. We, often send that out usually a few hours before the auction closes to draw interest and excitement in those. You can also highlight single items, as I pointed out, through social media to draw interest. You can use those categories to help filter down. I do have some great ads that I've created on this campaign as a great reminder on how they can keep that engagement going, different fundraising components that are available to them. So even while the guest is scrolling through all of those items, they have the ability to just review, highlight, and know what is kind of the flow of the night for them.
And I can jump in real quick. I think it's wonderful that you point out the ads. I think that's a perfect use of the reminders to all of your guests that, things are closing at certain times or what's available for purchase. And I do think too, it's important to note in the description of your items what your redemption process is going to be. So in the description, let clients know, let guests know if you're going to be shipping things out, or if shipping is built into the price, or if a shipping fee will be applied after the auction closes. So be very clear and upfront with your communication so you minimize the number of questions people are tossing back to you. I think it's so important to point that out up front while you are thinking about drafting your descriptions. Make sure you include that information somewhere in there.
Absolutely, giving all of the information possible to keep those guests aware of how the event will be handled, the item redemption, as you said, or where they're going to be able to, if it's a certificate and it's simply going to be mailed or emailed to them, versus if it's a tangible item and there needs to be an arrangement to pick that item up. Now, maybe in this transition over from what might have originally been an event to now a virtual or online, perhaps you had some live auction items, and we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about some best practices on how to kind of make that that pivot and transition over. And so what I've done is I've created some premier items here, and what you can do is create a separate category, again, within those items to promote that short window of time of when bidding is going to be available. You'll see I currently have these items set up to be in preview, so they're not open for bidding yet, but when the 8 to 9 p.m. time comes, we'll go ahead and open those items up and allow them to go ahead and place those bids. Now we've got, because we're not set up as a live and we don't have that banner indicating, we're also going to put a quick tag on that picture to let them know that these are in fact that premier item, and there is some kind of limit and scope around how these are going to behave. And also categorizing them to, again, not only help with the close of them, but help guests find those. And you can always, again, use that ad to promote that, indicating the time frame and even filtering down to seeing those items. So social media, messages, promote through Facebook Live how these items are going to, at the time that the bidding is going to occur on these items. And I do have, a great, let me find it here. If you've got those premier auction items and you're using a Facebook Live as a tool, perhaps you want to create a custom display, and during that Facebook Live feed, you can have a showcase of the bidding that's going on during that hour. Now, do know that there are some specific methods, again, like I was kind of indicating on opening and closing, and setting this premium item, or these kind of what we're live and now into this premium section. So you have it set for success. If you are looking to do something like this, please reach out to your customer success manager and they'll give you some additional guidance and tips and tricks. Diane, Amy, any other? Oh,
yeah, I'd like to jump in here because I've had a number of conversations this week with live auctioneers and a few organizations who are very concerned about this part of, hey, we have these live auction items and how do we do this virtually? And so I think Anne really touched on it. A few things we've heard, at least one that I'm hearing that's common, is doing some kind of a live feed or streaming with whomever is going to be making that appeal, if you will, talking about your cause, and then going into whether it is these premier items or strictly a donation appeal. So Amy and Aaron, have you heard any other neat things that folks are talking about?
Yeah, Diane, I think you bring up a really great point. Most of these premier items or live auction items are high profile, expensive items that the donors really need to know about in advance to be able to plan for. And with the online aspect, that's where we lose, somebody presenting it and giving all the details and highlighting just how special they are. So I think that the presentation of it via Facebook Live or even if it's just additional promotion about those specific items, making sure that before that window of time is opened up to bid on them, the guest really has a time to plan for that item. Sometimes they're talking with other couples and maybe deciding to go on an item together. So the planning aspect of that will be important. And it is possible just to convert these to silent auction items on the site so that you can have your guest bid. And then like Anne mentioned, you can just open those up for a specific window of time. But the big thing is just making sure that the guests are aware of those items more so than any of the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just do be mindful because these are usually your bigger ticket items, and you want to make sure that you're getting the value that you're comfortable with back from them. So setting that starting bid price and the incremental raise so that you make sure that even at that starting bid price, you're good with the winning price that that item would bring in.
I have a couple quick questions related to these premier items. If you're good with that, ladies, I thought it would be a good time to address these. A few people are asking about how do you put that premier banner on the item?
Well, I simply just took the image that I had set on the item and manipulated it a little bit on my computer and just kind of manipulated the image to include that banner. And it certainly is something I can, give a step-by-step instruction in a post communication if we need to. But there are ways to manage or manipulate images.
Excellent. And then another question here, can you have your silent auction close after the live or premiere? Our event was canceled for tomorrow. We want to host a live virtual and want our silent auction portion to close next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. So you're just going to go into the auction, into the items management page, and from there again, that's where the filter of having them set up as a category, those premier items, or however you'd like to entitle them, having that category added so that you can go in and select that grouping and choose to close those items at that specific time. Now, when you close just those premier items, it doesn't impact the remaining silent items. They can stay open for the duration of the time frame you'd like.
Excellent. Well, we have other questions, but I think you have, you're going to be covering some of these as we move on. So I'm going to let you take it forward, and we will address more questions in a bit.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's talk about ways that maybe you can do a virtual raffle. And so you can set up a raffle item on your campaign and allow those purchasers the opportunity to purchase tickets and to win. So maybe you're doing like a split the pot raffle, allowing those guests to purchase the tickets. You can have one set price or offer various levels. When they purchase the raffle tickets, they're actually going to see those raffle purchases tied to their My Info page. So each guest will know what tickets they purchased, what numbers they hold. When that raffle closes, when you're done selling those raffle items, you'll simply want to go into that item and again close it to suppress any more purchases from coming in. And from the admin side, you're going to want to then, once you're ready, go into your reports, and we've got this great raffle entry report, which is going to allow you to, again, see all of those entries, sort by entry number, so you can put that range in on random number generator, starting with the first number and all the way through. Once a random number is generated, you're going to pop that into the search field to filter down to that lucky winner. So we do have, again, some great resources in the Help Center specific to raffles. So I do encourage you, if this is something you want to incorporate into your virtual or online event, to review the resources found there. And again, promote. Use social media to highlight that this is occurring and engage people to place those purchases. Send a text message out maybe 15 to 20 minutes before you're ready to close that raffle item to, again, encourage last minute sales.
Aaron and Amy, have you heard any creative ways that people are going to handle raffles, or if there's going to be more or less raffles in these virtual events?
I can jump in real quick. So we definitely have some creative ways to promote those. I think, Anne, you covered a few of the most important ones. Definitely advertising it, sending text messages out, whether it's a party you want to have some sort of a raffle for, or encourage some additional purchases by offering some really highly coveted auction items, perhaps, that people could buy a raffle ticket for to join. I think some fun ways to announce the winners might be, send a text message out saying the winners have been posted on the homepage and link back to it. You can also, post it on your web page. You can use social, as you mentioned, and I think those are some fun different ways. But we haven't necessarily seen a decrease in the number of raffles, simply because it's fun. Just I would definitely be more clear on what the raffle is that they're entering, since you don't have that live event to really announce it and promote it verbally.
Excellent, thank you, Amy. And you know what? I'm excited that the next bit of our presentation here is on donations and that type of thing. So we're getting a lot of questions about fund the need, live feed, and those types of things. So one thing I do want to mention, we're hearing a lot about folks using Facebook Live, right? And some folks are even having where, we're hearing them talk about, we're going to have some of our team live and it's going on, and how do we incorporate that into the technology? And this is where it fits in really nicely, just to answer a couple people's questions here. Like, the bidding is all going to be managed through the technology. And so what happens is your auctioneer or your MC now becomes a person managing to the donations or to the bids, right? And so Anne's going to show us some displays in a bit, but I thought before we do that, let's have her show you the donation side of things. And then, yes, how do our displays, especially if you're doing some kind of a live feed into managing those bids and donations?
Yeah, a live feed can really help kind of, again, keep that excitement going. And if you do have an MC or an auctioneer to kind of help, again, keep that excitement and that interest going, that's really just going to benefit that donation opportunity. And even though this is online or occurring, virtually, there's lots of great ways that donors can still make a donation through that campaign, and even be reviewing that detail without having to see that display in the live feed, because you do have the ability on your homepage to set that goal that you're trying to reach, incorporate that progress image, and let those supporters know, even if they can't be a part of the live feed, of how close you are to reaching that goal, and pushing messages out as that kind of donation opportunity is drawing near, to remind them, we're only a few thousand away, help by making those last donations. And this will showcase all monetary donations that are coming into the campaign, regardless of the pathway that donation is coming in through. And there's lots of ways that it can come in. You've got your Donate Now form on the homepage that lets guests quickly make a donation, selecting from one of the amounts, entering in a new. From here, they're going to secure their payment right away. So know that you've not only secured the donation, but you've secured the payment. Reoccurring giving can be used from that Donate Now section as well. And then again, you've got those same donate items that are dispersed within the items page, but the donate page is going to allow them to filter down and find every opportunity available to them, be able to quickly make that donation. Now, donations made through here are going to be a part of their pay page for payment to be secured at a later point. But again, lots of ways for those donors to be able to give. And as donations are being received, if, as Diane said, you've got that opportunity to have a live feed going, create a custom donation or revenue display and have that being running behind the MC or behind whoever is kind of taking that time to really address your supporters. And this can also not only remind them of how close you are to reaching that goal, but giving all of those great supporters a nice quick shout out. Again, there's lots of ways to set these up. This is simply just one example of the numerous ways you can really be able to tailor and customize that revenue display. But it's a great way to kind of keep that promotion going and that excitement going during that live feed, if that's something you're going to incorporate in. And again, great resources in the Help Center. So lots of ways to take those donations and receive those donations. So make sure you're checking out the Help Center and taking advantage of every avenue possible. Now, as you know, you also have the ability to do that text to give or text to donate. That's another opportunity as well to let them quickly and easily make a monetary donation. Diane, did I cover kind of all of those elements that you're hearing about with regards to donations? Is there anything else you'd like me to showcase at that point?
I'm looking through the questions right now. I mean, Holly asked, do you have suggestions for replacing a paddle raise at a live gala event if the event's been canceled? So Holly, I hope what Ann just kind of communicated here does answer that question. And if you can add live feed, it's great. But even without, and Ann's going to show us in a little bit, the messaging center, you can do it via text messages and really engaging guests or, you know, donors throughout, so that we you can do that even without live feed, because you know, we recognize that people have varying levels of technology available to them, and so there's certainly ways to do it either way. So Amy and Erin, anything else to add on this kind of donate and ways that you can think of or have heard of incorporating that into these virtual events?
Sure, yeah, Anne, do you mind bouncing back to that donate tab on there?
Absolutely.
So I think what will be really important here is you can see that Anne has these separate buttons listed for the various dollar amounts. If your organization does have something specific that's tied to each dollar amount, it would be very helpful within the description of that to include what those funds are going towards. Or it could be that any amount like Anne is pointing to now. And again, just within there, you have your separate levels and a description of where the funds are going towards. I think without that live in-person aspect, they're really looking to understand what their contribution's going towards. So as clear as we can be here is the best way to go about it.
Excellent. So we are getting some questions, Anne, which I think is actually the natural progression of what you're going into. Some folks who want to have some instant type of items. So a few people asking about a virtual wine pull. How could we potentially do things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have instant items and vote items. I mean, there are ways that you can continue to support your donors to participate in a virtual wine pull, as we have established here. Maybe purchase merchandise or reserve a spot for a future event or party. You can use a vote item to let supporters cast a vote towards a competition remotely. Maybe you're voting on a future event theme or date, or maybe you're tying a vote to a challenge to pick your favorite competitor. All of these are still capable on an online or virtual event. I did go ahead and open up this virtual wine pull. Again, as I think we've been stressing all along, key is always to be making sure that you are sharing as much information as possible on how this is going to behave virtually. You know, you're buying a chance to pull a bottle of wine. This is the cost it's going to be. These are how many bottles we have, and the wine bottles will be available next week, you know, between the hours of and on these days. So you can still, you know, use those instant opportunities and use kind of those areas where you had fun and gave those guests an opportunity to participate in a unique way and still do it virtually. Again, it's all about the messaging and the information that you're putting in that item. That's going to really help to have that guest have clarity on how this is virtually going to happen. You can also include those questions, as you know, and maybe you're having something where a merchandise is occurring and you've got some options, including those questions to not only get the answer needed, but make sure that that guest is purchasing the item they want. And you're going to use your reporting to indicate who has purchased what, and then you're going to give them that direction on, you know, once we know who's won what, we'll make sure orders are going to be available to pick up after a certain date and the location. Now, to continue to promote these through up and leading to and during the event, again, use those text messages features, promote on ads within the all items page, and really, again, just keep the information flowing so that they understand, hey, we've still got 3 or 4 virtual wine bottles left. Hop on there and buy those last opportunities, and then we'll see you next week when you pop into the office to pick it up.
And that's actually great segue, Anne, because people are asking a little bit about messages. So why don't we show them that?
Perfect. Now, before I leave the items and we get into messages, I do want to remind everyone that, while people are placing bids and making votes and donations and et cetera remotely, if there is a situation that occurs where a guest makes an erroneous bid or purchase, that really the person who's kind of monitoring all of that activity, whether it be someone from the organization or perhaps you have a GiveSmart staff member who's kind of helping facilitate this even virtual or remote auction, that they're really keeping track of the invalid text messages. So this is in that message queue, but you really want to keep track of messages that are coming through and sent back. So if someone had an issue came in, you're going to want to look at the invalid. That's where you're going to see the person and, help. I accidentally made a bid on a wrong item. How do I correct this? Your admin who is facilitating can then reach out to that donor or that purchaser and make those corrections needed. So before we kind of talk through sending those messages, just that reminder, as people are engaged, keep track of those invalid messages coming through. So let's talk about ways that you can message. And let me get over to a page here where we can see that. So messages is all on the admin side, and org or campaign admin is going to have access to the messages page where you'll have the ability to email and text, communicating to all of those supporters online or virtually. Now, we do recommend email as a great mode of communication leading up to the event. During the course of that online or virtual event and the hours that you're kind of running that program, we do recommend text message as the best mode of communicating. But as you're getting prepared and leading up, email messages, creating a new message, choosing who the recipient is, drafting the subject, creating the body, even adding a link to the campaign to a specific space so that the recipients in that message go right to where you need them to be. And once it's created, you can either save it as a draft to send later or send right away. Now, some great examples of some draft emails that I've got in here is maybe you want to let them know when the auction is open, linking them into the items page, and reminding them of, post-event. Again, thank you for the support and all of the things that you've done. We want to remind you, if you've won or purchased an item, where you're going to go to secure that item. So there's great ways you can message leading up. There's even great ways you can communicate post. Now for the text messaging, again, we've got great ways to send a new text. We've got some templates that are really easy for you to select from and pre-populate all of the fields, or you can customize your own message. Again, choosing the recipient, creating that custom content, and linking those recipients into a specific space in the campaign. These templates are really fantastic for the event day. So you'll see a lot of these are kind of tied around elements that you will be virtually doing. Like we were talking about, items with no bids, a great message to send out and get engagement going on those items that haven't been bid on yet. It links them right to that subsection. Now, you can get all of these messages drafted and saved so that during the course of that virtual event, you've got them all queued up in your draft folder and be able to quickly review them, make edits as needed, and either save it or send it right away. Again, we can use that Facebook feed and remind people of how they can join our Facebook Live and be engaged throughout the course of the program. So these messages are really pivotal in making sure that that engagement level and that awareness of how those guests can be engaged during those hours of the program or the virtual program.
I'd also like to remind everybody, if you've already signed up to utilize GiveSmart staff at your event, we can still handle that with you, right? So even if you've moved your live event to a virtual event, and it is going to be complex, and you still have a lot of fundraising elements, you might want to have your staff still help you and assist you in sending these messages and opening and closing items and that type of thing. So definitely talk to your CSM about that or your account manager. Amy and Aaron, anything to add related to the messaging and utilizing the staff for these virtual events?
I think really the key here is to prepare as much as possible, right? Because there's always going to be things that come up in the moment. You might be looking at different numbers and lose sight of, oh my gosh, it's time to send a text. And then it really takes the pressure off of you having to remember what to say in that moment. So really being prepared. I think the system is fantastic in the way that it allows you to do that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely.
And for the sake
just
of
to point out, so
time,
that's where those sent are, and make sure you're just keeping track throughout the course of the virtual program, those invalid messages, to make sure that if there's any guests who you need to reach out to, you're finding them, you're locating them, and you're handling it.
excellent. So for the sake of time, Anne, I know we do have a bunch of questions that I want to get to in a bit, but I think there are a few things that I know you want to cover, so we'll do that, and then we'll jump into questions related to, you know, when you're ready, if you're doing a virtual auction, should it be an auto close or should it be a manual close, that type of thing?
Well, Diane, you're leading me right into the next area that I wanted to talk about. And so when it is time for that auction to close and you're having it, you know, handled virtually, we're talking again, message, message, message. Let those guests know as it's drawing near and as you're getting close to the end of that close time. Now, you did see in the very beginning, I have the countdown clock established. So you can get that set up and even get some of those auction close settings established real early if you're pretty firm on all of those details, and setting under your auction settings the exact date and time, letting that countdown clock be exposed to those guests so they know exactly how many more minutes, seconds they have to place a bid. Now, this is where you'll also choose between that auto and manual close. And we do recommend a manual close when there is a physical event, but when we're talking about an online or a virtual event, we're going to lean towards recommending that auto close, especially if you are running an online event that has a very firm close time. Because let's just talk a little bit about what that auto close looks like. So when you choose to have an auto close, it automatically closes the items and stops bidding on all silent items with active bidding and reconciles those items, converting them from pending to purchased in the guest cart so that payment can be secured. So with an auto close, both of those two things happen immediately back to back after each other. So you really lose the control of being able to click the close button when you're ready and then choose to reconcile. But again, if you've got that firm close time, if you know your guests are engaged remotely and you want to make sure that there's no discrepancy, everyone knew the auction is closing exactly at 10 p.m. Setting that is going to then make sure that both the close and the reconcile occur at exactly this date and this time. And while I'm talking about this time, do make sure that you have confirmed in your design center on that map that you've got at minimum the correct city and state, because the time that's set here is going to be dictated in the time zone set in that map that appears on the home page. So know that you've got that set up for success, and when it happens, it's automatically going to close. And again, I'm telling you that auto close automatically closes and reconciles. So it takes that control out of your hands. And once those items are reconciled, there is no undoing it. So just, again, be mindful of that. Now, if you choose a manual close, if you go that direction and gives you a little bit more flexibility on the close and reconcile of the items, you're going to have somebody managing from the close and wrap up, where they can also see that countdown clock. And when it hits 0, that they're choosing to close. You'll follow the prompts to close the items. And once you've gone through those prompts, you'll be prompted to reconcile. You'll again follow the prompts to reconcile, and then those items will in fact be closed and reconciled. Now, whether you're doing manual or auto, just know once the reconcile occurs, there is no undoing it. And again, if you're using GiveSmart staff, they can assist you in executing the close and reconcile of the auction as well.
Perfect. Before we move on to some other things, we're getting a lot of questions. I'm going to back you guys up. So I want you, Anne and Amy and Erin, think back to, you know, we maybe had some guests we invited already, but a lot of folks are asking questions related to, hey, we didn't yet invite people. How do we get them to register, self-register, get their credit card on file, and participate in our virtual event?
Sure, I can take this one, Anne. So Anne, do you mind going to the dashboard where the link is posted?
Absolutely.
All right. So on the admin dashboard right here, you have your website URL for easy access. Now, because this is a remote event, a lot of folks are probably, sitting on their computer and they have time to go to the web address. That is the website URL that you will share. So it's on the dashboard of your site. So again, like we mentioned earlier in the call, social media. So posting that on your Facebook page, sending out an email with that link, letting all your donors know to share that website with their friends and family. But the other alternative is right below that link, you'll see the text message instructions. So your campaign site will have its own keyword. So in this case, online gala is the keyword. You can instruct donors to text that keyword into the short code number 76278. And they'll be prompted to enter their first and last name and any other information you've required to capture from them. And then that's it. They can easily get onto the site to start bidding.
Me and Ann, anything to add on the registration side of things? Because I think I'm seeing, like I said, a lot of questions on folks that really want to get as many people engaged. Also questions related to, can we upload phone numbers and from a spreadsheet?
Yes, there are absolutely ways that users can be administratively entered on a campaign. And so an admin can either choose to, if somebody reaches out and says, hey, I want to get engaged, they can always just click on the new user, typing in that person's name, mobile, email, getting them registered at the role that they need to be registered at. This will send that new user the registration email, or I'm sorry, the registration, I was correct, the registration email and the welcome text message. And from that welcome text message, that newly registered user is going to go right into the items page to start browse, bidding, and buying. So if the admin has that information and they want to get those people added in one by one, they can do it from here. Now, we do offer the ability to bulk import users. It's also found on the users page. And the import users is where you'll start by selecting a template to download. There are some guidelines. The top row is going to tell you kind of what those fields are. Leave those fields as is and start to add in those users. You can include phone numbers and email addresses as you begin to import them. Once it's complete, you're just going to save it as a CSV and visit the same space to import those users. And once they're imported, so users that are imported through this pathway administratively don't receive that welcome text message, don't receive an email. So you would then have to go into the messages and choose to either email or text message those now imported users. Now, we don't recommend importing users on a campaign where ticketing is being used. Again, because you've got those users who are on there as ticket purchasers or attendees. But if it's a non-ticketed event, you can certainly come in here and bulk upload those users and start to get that new subset of group engaged.
Excellent. Excellent, excellent. I'm now going to back you up. Sorry, Ann, I'm taking you all over the place. Back to when we were talking about, but I think it's important because you were just talking about closing and reconcile the auction. And we had a few people asking questions around those premier items because you had talked about closing those separately and beforehand. So I think there's just maybe going back to how do you do that? And then a number of questions on, and again, guys, this is kind of some new unnavigated waters for us. How long do you want to leave those premier items open? So any recommendations there?
I will certainly walk through the pathway and kind of give a quick tutorial on how you can do that. Amy or Erin, do you want to talk about maybe best practices?
Yeah, definitely. So once you add in your live auction items, so keep in mind you'll want to add those in as silent auction items so that people can bid on them. And once you have those in as a silent auction item, you really can, it's up to you if you want to keep those open at a limited number of time or limit the amount of time that they're open for bidding, or if you want to just keep them open the same amount of time as you keep the silent auction open. Keep in mind it's, a recommendation to put those in a separate category. So call those your exclusive items, your super silent, your premier items, as Ann has on the display here on the demo here. So really just kind of highlighting those as individual items, that these are our premier exclusive, you know, highly coveted items that only you can get during this time, are some ideas that you might consider. So definitely, you know, you want to communicate this to your guests through the ads on the site, through text messages, but really bring more attention to those. If you do decide to go the route of Facebook Live or recording a video ahead of time to showcase these extra special items, that might be something you consider as well, and then link to that in your description, or, you know, however you're hosting your Facebook Live.
Yeah, so it's really just a matter of kind of internally deciding within your own organization. Are you going to limit the time and have that little exclusive feel around it, or are you going to leave them open for the entire time of the auction items? Either way, they do need to be set up as a silent item, just making sure you set that starting bid and incremental raise at a comfortable amount, so that if by chance only one bid came in, right, that the amount that you're going to get, that starting bid price, is a amount you're comfortable with receiving for that item. So you just do want to make sure you've got those set up for success. And then if you are going to limit the time, as we have them set up here to only be open for an hour, it's simply coming into those items, locating that category that we've created. And this is, you know, where Amy and we were talking about, that category is just helping not only the guests to filter and find those items, but it's going to help you through the process of the closing of them. And once you've got them, you see all of those premier or those limited items, selecting them, and from the bulk actions, you're going to choose to close them. And when you close them, it stops the bidding on those items. Now, they don't reconcile because you're not closing them along with all the other items. You don't reconcile them and convert them from pending to purchased, but they will reconcile later when you reconcile the remaining of the silent items at the time those items close. But you can at least close that bidding on them and stop that bidding at that designated time frame if you are in fact limiting the time frame of those items. And again, it's all about that messaging, whether we're talking about these premier items or your entire auction close. Send those messages. You know, we often recommend sending a couple of messages, and for an online or for an event where everyone is kind of participating virtually, maybe you want to send a message 30 minutes prior to the close and then another one at 15, really keeping them engaged and knowing the time frame that they have to get those last minute bids in. And we also recommend never telling the guests the auction is closing in 10 or 15 minutes. Give an exact time, because one guest might be looking at their phone 5 minutes later than the next guest. And so that 10-15 minutes time frame isn't a real clear depiction on how long they actually have to place those bids.
Good stuff. Couple other questions, since we're talking about items and that type of thing. There's a couple good ones here. So the one question here: does using auto close cause unsold auction items to convert to buy it now? And if we don't want to do that, how do we prevent that from happening?
Yes, that is a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. So when you close the items, it converts any silent items that have no bids placed on them from to a now buy it now at the starting bid price. And so the best pathway to prohibit that from happening is to come into your items afterwards, and you're going to want to filter down to those silent items and hide them. So you'll just select your type, and once you've got your type, you've got those items filtered down, and you can either close or hide them from here. Or I'm sorry, your instant buy. No, you're silent, and then that will convert them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wonderful. Another question I want to address, because it's come up a couple times: does GiveSmart have a live feed capability or streaming instead of Facebook Live? So interesting that that you bring this up. So while GiveSmart doesn't, we are very fortunate that we are part of a larger family, community brands and ministry brands, and so we don't have that prepared for today's presentation. But thank you so much for these questions. What we'll do is I'm going to gather some information, and we will send something out following up this webinar on the capabilities we have. But just know that Facebook Live is a very common practice and a common method that folks are talking about and using, but we will certainly see what we can bring to you that could possibly be an additional or different source. All right, and then a few questions about, before we move on to some of these final things, on timing. How many days do you recommend to have an auction open?
I can jump in here. So it varies, but I think an ideal time frame is probably about 5 to 7 days. You don't want it to be too long where your donors lose interest, but you also don't want it to be too short. Now, with these virtual events, you know, if it's an event that's coming up this weekend, some of you may have already started promoting these items, in which case it still makes sense to close it on the original planned date and time. But if it's items that you haven't yet promoted or a donation opportunity that you haven't yet promoted, I would say probably about 5 to 7 days is a good time frame.
And just to add to that, during that time frame, make sure you're keeping up with your communication. If you only announce it on day one and then don't say anything again until the 5th or 7th day about the close of it, people may lose sight or may lose, you know, if it's out of sight, out of mind. So keep that messaging going throughout that 7 to 10 days or 5 to 7 days, whatever you choose.
Again, I think it is about communication, as we've been saying throughout. I do have a really great question here I want to throw out there, because I think, you know, these live auction items that folks are converting to that premier auction, someone asked, is there a way that those winners or bidders can be seen or public versus anonymous?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the item history. Do you want to show that, Ann? Where you can see that? You can choose to display the item or the bidding history, so you can see all of the names that are bidding on the item, or you can choose to show those as anonymous. That would be the spot where it shows up, and then yeah.
But just know that the item history would then be presented on all items. So we don't have a way of just limiting and saying only show the item history on these 4 premier items. Now, what you could do, just to point out, is if you wanted, well, you'd still have to have it set up in the item history. So I apologize. If they're only looking to show the winner of those 4 items, it's a global feature, so it would expose it on all or none to show those names.
Gotcha.
And I guess, Diane, what I was hearing is that they were trying to limit that exposure.
Yes, yes.
And then,
I think that was.
And then of course we have a preset text message that you send to the winners as well. So once you close your auction, obviously you send a text out to them letting them know they're a winner.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind too. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, we only have a couple minutes left here, and I know, Ann, you did want to cover, you know, just once that auction is closed and reconciled, just some best practices for a virtual event on getting those guests checked out.
Yes, please. Perfect. Thank you. So obviously, with any event, we always recommend self-checkout. It really puts the control in that guest's hands to secure their own payment on the credit card of their choice. And like Amy just mentioned, when that auction is closed, send out that message to the silent auction winners. And those premium items, because they were set up as silent, will be included in that grouping and be able to see what items were won from their pay page. You'll also then follow that up with the payment instruction, and the payment instruction is linking those guests. And those 2 messages that I'm talking about, payment instructions and silent auction winners, are 2 of those text messages that we have templated already into the campaign. So really easy to locate and select. From there, the payment instruction is going to take that guest right to their pay page, where they're going to review all of their purchases, see that total, and with self-checkout enabled, be able to go ahead and really easily secure that payment on the credit card of choice. And a guest may have more than 1 credit card on their account. They'll be able to either add a new one if the one that's on there isn't the one they want to use, or choose between the ones that they have. Now, payment will be in full, so they can't divide a payment from their pay page, but they can certainly pay in full on the credit card of choice. And once self-checkout is complete, they will see that big red paid stamp that lets them know payment has been secured and the payment method desired. And if their email is attached to their user account, they're going to get an email right away of that receipt of purchase. Now, with item redemption, when they do go to wherever it is that they are going to secure those items, coming right back to this pay page is where that visitor can show that volunteer assisting with that item redemption. Yep, I did in fact pay, and these are the items that I won. Now, if self-checkout is running along and there are some guests that haven't secured their payment themselves, and you can message them more than once, kind of encouraging them to take those steps to secure that payment, an admin can always help the process along. You can do it one by visiting the checkout page, searching by status, looking for those guests who have yet to pay, and be able to follow the steps to begin that checkout, reviewing, securing the payment with a credit card that's on file. If there is one, will appear here, or if the guest is paying in an alternate method, you can secure that payment right here, one by one, for those guests. Now, there's another option as well, and you're going to actually find that in the close and wrap up section. Once the auction has been closed and reconciled, there is a space to go ahead and settle remaining balances or run all of the cards. Now, again, this is an opportunity to secure payments on all balances of $1,000 or less. Before you choose this feature, we do really recommend that you give those users the chance to self-check out first, and then you review those balances. Now, for balances that remain here, like I said, it's only for those that are 1,000 or less. It will automatically run those payments. You will get a little pop-up that appears to let you know if there were any that payments that were not secured, so that you can go back to the checkout screen and review. Any guests who have a payment of 1,001 or more, they will have to be checked out through the checkout screen. So this is only 1,000 or less. And if a user has more than one credit card attached to their account, the most recent added card will be the one that is charged when you select to run all credit cards. So again, while we have this feature, we really do recommend letting those guests have the opportunity to self-check out before taking that next step.
Thank you so much, Anne. And we are actually at the end of our time, and we want to stay true to time. Anybody who asked a question that we didn't get to, we are going to find a way to respond to you. So we will be reviewing all the Q&A that was submitted throughout the session, and we will find a way to answer that question for you. We're going to have other resources available in the upcoming days and weeks. So this is the first webinar of many, like I said, resources for you. So be watching. We will stay in contact with all of you. We thank you very much for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out to your account manager or CSM if you have any immediate questions, and we hope that this was helpful today. Everyone have a great day. Thank you, Amy and Erin and Anne.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.